So is and Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's America First. That's her movement along with him. Uh, you notice that Marjorie Taylor Greene always says America First, America First, is because Nick Fuentes is the founder of that movement, and between him, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they command that movement. And so for McCarthy to be promising Marjorie Taylor Greene uh, chair committee hearings, to be head chair of the committees, is appalling. It's appalling. Marjorie Taylor Greene believed that January 6th uh, was an inside job. Like she said, a plane never flew into the Pentagon. That somehow that was an inside job. And she pals around. She believes, and she wanted to pass a bill into law that gentrifies European migrations and abolishes migrations for third world countries, to ensure that America becomes Eurocentric and white supremacy gentrified again. So she always goes around and and pals around, and always at Trump rallies, she always says America first. And when Trump was nominating Mastriano to become governor of Pennsylvania, they invited a woman to speak at that event. That woman was saying how her nephew was treated so unfairly because he got arrested that day of January 6th. And it came to be that her nephew was a Hitler impersonator. That he loves Hitler so much that he combs his hair like Hitler. He shaves his mustache like Hitler. And Trump never disavowed her. The same way he acts docile. He says, I didn't know who was Nick Fuentes. But he doesn't condemn him and vanquish him in the strongest ways from his movement. Neither does he do that to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Nick Fuentes also pals around with Alex Jones. And so this is the true base of Trump. It's undeniable that this is his base. And so Trump, at the Charlottesville Nazis were marching around General Lee, Trump, because you gotta, the Nazis, while they was marching around with General Lee, they were saying that Jews would not replace them. And then you will not replace them, meaning minorities and Jews. That somehow minorities and Jews will not replace them. And so Trump says there are fine peoples on both sides. And ever after Charlottesville, Trump kept on bragging about how great General Lee used to fight wars, how good of a General Lee was. After Charlottesville, defending General Lee statues on behalf of Nazis. Basically, he's bragging about General Lee at his rallies. And in those same rallies, he's saying that sports players, for kneeling and praying for awareness, while they kneel and pray for awareness to civil rights, in those same rallies, Trump rubs salt in their wounds by bragging about General Lee, and then calling them African sports players, calling them unpatriotic son of a bitches, and they're disrespecting the flag. Somehow Trump, as president, is adoring both flags, the Confederacy and the Star-Spangled Banner. No wonder the racial riots broke out. It was because Trump kept on denigrating and rubbing salt in the wounds of civil rights in this country. Constantly bragging about General Lee, and then saying that African Americans, for kneeling and praying, were disrespecting the flag. Now this guy named Nick Fuentes, at his podcast, says that there's nothing wrong with Africans being separated from white peoples in this nation. There's nothing wrong with that. That the Africans should be happy to be separated from white peoples. That they should be happy to drink from separate water fountains. And be happy to sit separately in lunch counters. And what's wrong with drinking from separate water fountains, he says? It's the same water. And even if it wasn't, so what? These people are animals. That's Nick Fuentes. That's what he said. And this is who is the right-hand man of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And Marjorie Taylor Greene goes prowling around with this guy constantly. And when she goes to Trump rallies, she always says America first. Because that's the organization that Nick Fuentes is the founder of. And so Trump doesn't disavow these people. He whistleblows to them. Stand back and stand by. You know, Trump said of his January 6th ellipse speech, he says, my speech was better than Martin Luther King I Had a Dream speech. And that my crowds were bigger than his. He's desecrating the great legacy of Martin Luther King I Had a Dream speech, saying that somehow his speech is better than his. And the same day where they wanted to hang Mike Pence, his vice president, they wanted to blow up the incumbent vice president with 2 pipe bombs. They killed, I believe it was 3 or 4 Capitol Police officers. They almost killed Nancy Pelosi. Trump is comparing that day and saying that that day was better and bigger than Martin Luther King. How can you not misconstrue that this is white supremacy underneath the Trump movement, within the Trump movement, governed and led by Trump? And so the Republicans have to realize it's first a democracy before it's considered a republic within this union. You cannot have a nation if it's not rooted in democracy. And a republic cannot stand if it's not for democracy. So democracy has to come first before you are able to have a union and a republic to stand on. So if the Republicans doesn't vanquish this Trump movement from their parties, eventually they will be driven out of power because the democracy will reign free when all men are considered equal with unalienable rights.